You might know that our Kristen Severance has been spending this entire school year inside of a local elementary school. It's a series we call Inside Woodlawn, giving us kind of a feel of what's going on in our schools day in and day out nowadays. When one day, one student stopped showing up to class, and when Kristen found out why, it brought a national debate into the halls of a Portland school.
When Lionel Clegg saw Karen's chair was still empty a week after Christmas break, he knew something must be off with one of his best students.
So didn't really think nothing of it outside of maybe she's either taking an extended vacation or maybe she's sick.
We never interviewed the quiet, bright first grader during our year-long series about life at Woodlawn Elementary School. We did get some video of her while filming in Mr. Clegg's class at the beginning of the year, and here she is laughing with friends on school picture day. The 7-year-old is from Guatemala. Mr. Clegg always made sure to use the Hispanic pronunciation of her name.
Cotton was very shy. One thing I say in my class all the time is that leaders aren't quiet, so I expect her to speak out, and she would always talk with her hand over her mouth, and she knew you can't answer a question with me covering your mouth, so she got into the habit of doing that, and I began to see that light shine in her and that confidence build in her before Christmas break.
Woodlawn secretary Sandra Vasquez Luna could see Karen's confidence growing.
I remember like it was yesterday when she came in to register. She didn't speak English, Dad didn't speak English. From last year to this year, that girl came long ways. She got her English so quickly.
Assistant Principal Alma Velasquez saw it too. Karen had been at Woodlawn since kindergarten.
And so she had been with us already over a year, established herself as a great student, a student who was making a lot of progress.
You know, we do awards, and we do have reading awards, writing awards, and math awards. She actually had the award for overall growth because she was thriving in all areas.
She never missed this many days of school.
After 10 days, our kids are kicked off of our roster if they haven't attended school. So I went to the office just to see, hey, have we called her house yet, just to see if anything's going on or what the deal is.
So then I started reaching out to people on her emergency contacts, and an aunt picked up, and she's the one that told me that they got deported after their court hearing.
She told me at that point that Cotton had been deported. So it hit me just like a ton of bricks because, again, I'm still working with my kids at the time, but just now I really couldn't think of anything but, you know, the things that maybe Cotton and her family are going through, and that was really hard.
I ended up calling the family that she has in town, and they did share with me that the family had been ordered to leave, and they left this month.
There was talk of deportation, sadness, and fear at Woodlawn those next few days.
It's not something that I even knew how to deal with. The first thing I was thinking was, how can we get her back? But again, never being faced with that situation, it just, again, came to the realization that basically she's gone.
Mr. Clegg didn't give details, but told his students, Karen's classmates, she wasn't coming back.
I simply told them that she's going to another school and she won't be with us anymore. There were a lot of kids just in that statement alone, you know, that were upset.
What went through your mind?
Am I next? How long will I have with my family? Just being a DACA recipient, I know I can be next. Sorry. It's hard.
Sandra was brought to the U.S. from Mexico before she was 1. Now she has 5 kids of her own. Her DACA, or Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals status, means she can live and work here for now. It's not a guarantee she can stay forever.
It's never been that close to us. It's never been where kids had to question, wait, where did Karen go? Or what happened to Karen? Or it's now starting to just the explanation of giving to the kids. It's hard on me.
Alma could also relate.
And this is a story that's personal to me. You know, my father was an undocumented immigrant. And so if it weren't for the fact that he took that risk, me and my family would not be here right now. So I understand very well that people leave their countries for a number of reasons because they have no other choices. It's not a risk that you ever take lightly.
20% of students at Woodlawn are Hispanic. 14% are English learners. Woodlawn in every Portland public school has a very clear policy. They don't care about a student's immigration status. They will teach and provide a safe environment for every student in their school.
We don't ask any questions of our students. We never ask when they show up, do you have papers? That is not ever, the question that we ask is, how can I help? You know, what do you need? Because it's irrelevant. I don't see kids as, are you here with a legal status or not?
According to school board policy, immigration and customs enforcement officials can't enter a Portland public school without notifying the superintendent and district's general counsel in person first. If ICE enters Woodlawn, they go into lockdown. Portland Public Schools was one of many districts across the country to pass this type of policy in November of 2016 after President Trump was elected.
When this first really hit the fan, I believe last year, there were letters sent out informing our parents to, rest assured that we're not doing any special documentation checks or anything to that effect to make you leery or weary of bringing your children to school. So that's been something I've been very, again, confident and comfortable in, and a little overly confident and comfortable at this point. So,
if a family member says a student was deported, school officials would not investigate further or have any real way of finding out more information. Immigration proceedings are incredibly private. There's no public immigration court docket, no way to immediately access public records unless you know what's called an A number or alien number. ICE would not tell us anything about Karen because she's a minor. They did say Karen's dad, Miguel Gaspar, entered the country illegally in 2018 near the border between Mexico and New Mexico. He was caught by Border Patrol agents, released into the U.S. a few days later, and was being monitored by immigration officials through phone calls and in-person checks. ICE said Gaspar was not deported, but going through immigration proceedings and had a hearing next month. The judge at the last two immigration hearings ordered a voluntary removal, but he was granted a continuance. He sent Karen back to Guatemala before that third hearing. We don't know if Gaspar is still in the U.S. or back there too.
There's immigrant children in every school, and so this is not a unique story, sadly, that we lose children this way. Yeah.
Alma knows people will say Gaspar did this to himself and to Karen.
I think people who speak that way haven't had the need to find a better place for their family, haven't seen themselves in a situation where, they had to do something, because I am a mother, I am, like I said, an immigrant. I can't imagine that I wouldn't move everything for my child, that I wouldn't go to the ends of the earth to give her an opportunity that I thought she could have.
At Woodlawn, it doesn't make a difference if Karen and her dad were deported, facing deportation, or left because the weight of the unknown was just too much. Karen's gone, and so is the person she could have been here.
I seen a little girl grow up in a short amount of time, and I know the potential that she has.
I'm sorry this happened to her. That I hope she's well, and that we really cared about her, and that we thought she was very special. That her friends miss her. That's what I would say. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, Kristen Severance sitting down with us now. What are we to make of this? Where do we go from here after a story like this one?
This story does not have a beginning. It does not have an end. It's happening right now. You know, it's happening in our community. It's happening inside Woodlawn. I'm going to continue to tell these stories, and I'm sitting down with the superintendent on Monday. I'm going to ask him about this story and about, you know, the district's policies. Do they keep track of undocumented students, or should they?
A lot of questions that come up after seeing a piece like this. And, you know, it reminds me to tell you guys something at home that you hear a lot here on the story, to please use that hashtag #HeyDan and give us your questions, give us your concerns. And I do also want to say, we've had this online since when?
Yesterday.
So we've seen some comments come in already on our YouTube channel. We're all good with the send them back comments. We're all good with the, you know, open your heart comments. We got that. Let's talk about real issues, real things and solutions that we can come up with here as we continue to balance compassion and policy moving forward.
Right, and if you have a question, I can actually bring that question to the superintendent. So let us know, what do you want to know? Because I can actually get an answer.
Again, use the hashtag #HeyDan. Kristen, thank you.
You bet.
Listen, we all get nostalgic for the 90s sometimes. I mean, grunge, Clueless, New Kids on the Block. Oh, oh, oh. But Tillamook County has been stuck there for a week with no computers, no email, and no credit cards. And Oregon Democrats are ready for Cap and Trade, the sequel. They're also ready to try and keep Republicans from walking out again. And you've been asking us a ton of questions about Oregon's Real ID rules. We don't blame you. The rollout's been a hot mess. We're going to try and answer one of them. And the story continues.
Good evening and welcome to The Story with old-timey news anchor Dan Haggerty, reporting to you from Tillamook County, which has been positively blasted back to the ancient times of 1991. It has been a week and 1 day now since the entire county government has lost its connection with its phone services, emails, internet, even credit cards. Thank goodness 911 lines were not affected. But visitors to the library were even forced to use pen and paper in order to check out books. Oh, the humanity! The local news sources say the source of the chaos is a newfangled insurgent known as ransomware, and these bad actors reportedly won't release Tillamook County's electronic services from their grasp until they are paid a yet unspecified sum of money. The proper Tillamook County authorities are in close contact with forensic experts and the Federal Bureau of Investigation of Portland in order to reverse this highly disruptive turn of events. And hopefully they do it soon, because payday is tomorrow. Reporting from Tillamook County, this is old-timey news anchor Dan Haggerty.
Are you sure you weren't a news anchor back in the 50s, you know, reading for the teletype machine, that kind of a thing, Dan? You sure about that? I don't know, that worked pretty well. All right, here we go. We had a beautiful, beautiful start to the day. If you didn't see the sunrise, it looked like this. And thanks to all the viewers who sent in pictures and video of said sunrise, it was absolutely spectacular. These are alto stratus clouds, and they band like that sometimes, and then the light hit it, and it was just a thing of absolute beauty, especially after such a dreary January. We're back in the dreary right now, and we will be in the morning, but not all day tomorrow. Look, by noontime, it's dry and 56, and by the end of the day, we're up to 60 degrees. Might even get a little bit of sun, too. So again, things will be looking up for Friday after a wet start. We've got the rain with us right now, and it's going to push through. So we'll have maybe 1/4 of an inch overnight tonight. This system is going to push north, clear out of the way, and we'll get just a bit of clearing. But then we finally tap into that colder air in the Gulf of Alaska. So we're going to go from 60 on Friday to snow showers on Sunday. A really dramatic turn of events here over about 2 days. And in between, Saturday, it's going to rain really hard and be windy. So some pretty nasty weather on Saturday. Then it cools off, and we've got snow showers and rain showers on Sunday. Now, up in the mountains, this bodes well because we're going to get that snow level all the way down to 500 feet. The hills might see some minor accumulations around town, but the Cascades up to a foot on Saturday, 3 to 6 inches on Sunday. So that means Super Bowl Sunday is going to be a great day to be skiing. I think I just might have created some conflict for some people. wants the Super Bowl, go skiing wants the Super Bowl. Anyway, it's going to be really good, and then it'll warm up again towards the end of next week. But tomorrow is the day where we climb up to 60 degrees, then it cools off on Saturday and Sunday, and again, a little bit of snow in the air on Sunday. Are you sure you weren't anchoring the news reading teletype back in the 50s or 60s, Dan?
That was an ancient relative.
That was perfect.
Pretty sure. Yeah, I'm named after a great newscaster from back in the day.
Yeah, who's that?
Dan Haggerty. You heard him say it?
Yeah, all right.
Thanks, buddy.
Sure.
All right, hey, let's talk Cap and Trade 2.0, or as we like to call it, 2Cap, 2Trade, the sequel. A new spin on the same premise with the same old characters. Now, last year it was a huge deal, as you remember, in the Oregon legislature, but that bill is coming back next week. In short, it would put a cap on the amount of carbon dioxide that companies could pump into the atmosphere. But we want to take you back to the basics, all the way back. What exactly is carbon dioxide, and why is it such a problem? Pat Doris is breaking it down for us.
Carbon dioxide emissions happen naturally on Earth, and they have forever. But since the Industrial Revolution, humans have added carbon dioxide at a faster pace than the Earth would naturally. That's a problem, because carbon dioxide floats up to the edge of the Earth's atmosphere and works sort of like a one-way window. It lets the incoming rays from the sun come in to warm the Earth, but it blocks some of those rays as they try to shoot back out to space. For thousands of years, the window worked just fine and kept the Earth's temperature in a Goldilocks zone for life. Not too hot, not too cold. But scientists say over time, the carbon dioxide layer is getting thicker, sort of making the window harder to get through and bouncing even more rays in all directions, raising the temperature of the planet and changing the climate.
So carbon dioxide definitely causing some issues, and Democrats and Republicans both can agree on that, Pat. What they can't agree on is how to handle it. We saw that with Cap and Trade during the last session when Republicans literally walked out to prevent a quorum and a vote.
Right, it was very effective. Under the state constitution, you have to have a certain number of senators there to even take the vote. So by walking out, the Republicans effectively shut down that entire thing. It was really frustrating for both sides, I think. The Republicans would tell you they hated to do it. Democrats say they hated that it happened.
Frustrating, yes. You mentioned effective, yes. So what would keep them from doing that again? Democrats have a supermajority. They could pass this Cap and Trade 2.0 that we've been hearing about. This is kind of the Republicans' move at this point. What would keep them from doing it again?
Well, nothing, frankly. Although Democrats do want to change the law to try and make it much harder in the future. Right now, the Oregon Constitution requires that each house in the legislature have 2/3 of the lawmakers present to have that quorum. Democrats want to change that to just a simple majority. But since the change would amend the state constitution, even if it does get through this little session, then voters still have to say yes or no. That would not happen till November.
You can't rush through a process like that when you're changing the Constitution. So even if that were to happen, we're not talking about anything that would have affected this session that's upcoming.
That's correct. Yep. It could still happen.
All right. So I guess we'll have to see what happens as we approach Cap and Trade 2.0, or who knows, maybe even Cap and Trade 3.0. We'll wait. Meantime, if you want to look deeper into this issue, we have a lot of stuff for you. Deep dive into climate issues here in our state. Check out Pat's series, Power Struggle. It looks at coal plants shutting down across Oregon and the impacts that we're seeing. That's up right now on KGW's YouTube channel. Pat, thank you.
My pleasure.
Now, you may remember we told you about a Washington state bill that would make it illegal to discriminate against hairstyles. We found out Oregon is also considering a similar bill for the upcoming legislative session, which again starts on Monday. It would do pretty much the same thing as this Washington version would do. It would change the current laws on the books that ban racial discrimination to include natural hair, hair texture, hair type, and protective hairstyles. This applies to discrimination in both schools and workplaces. We will, of course, keep you posted as this moves through the legislature. This obviously is a pretty hot topic, and we've been getting a lot of responses to this story online. Amber writing in on Facebook saying, this is long overdue. Hair discrimination is racism disguised as professionalism. That sounds familiar, kind of like our quote of the day from last night when we heard from one of the women trying to get this bill passed in Washington.
As a Black woman, this is I understand that when people say it needs to be more professional, that means it needs to be more white.
Okay, we know we just threw a lot of legislation stuff at you there in the last couple of stories. We love answering your questions, too, that you might have during this upcoming session. So stuff about the hair bill, stuff about cap and trade, quorums, pretty much anything. We love all of this sort of stuff. If you do, talk to us, comment on my Facebook page, or use the hashtag #HeyDan on Twitter.
I think we're being kind when we say Oregon's rollout of Real ID has been difficult. You've got questions, we've got answers when the story continues.
Oregon's Real ID rollout has been such a mess and so confusing. It's no wonder that so many of you have been asking us a lot of questions about it. We want you to keep them coming. Also use the hashtag #HeyDan. Steve McGregor said, Dan, any reason why the other states were able to begin the process a year or more before it goes live and Oregon was unable to follow their lead? Well, the simple answer is our lawmakers were kind of being stubborn and in some ways trying to make a point. The Real ID Act was actually developed after 9/11 and has been in place since the early 2000s. Some states have been compliant for more than a decade, while others, like Oregon, decided to hold out. They didn't like the idea of the federal government really telling them what to do or telling states that they had to pay for it. There was also a concern over immigration and the Real IDs being used as a way to intimidate people living in this country illegally. To get a Real ID, you do have to prove citizenship. It's more or less kind of like a passport. For these reasons and more, Oregon and other states held out, and Oregon just held out the longest. So here we are at the end of the line and out of time. I know there are a lot more questions about this. In fact, we kind of came up with a few of our own just by answering this one. If you have any more questions, send them our way using the hashtag #HeyDan or messaging me on Facebook. Look, it's not always about us here on The Story. We like to tell you about some of the other works in journalism that we think are worth your time, like this one today. Erica Morrison at OPB published this. A first-of-its-kind affordable housing community for Native Americans opens in Portland. The 59-unit complex is in the Cully neighborhood. It's the first of its kind, getting the Housing and Urban Development Indian Housing Block grant money to build in an urban environment. Typically, that money is spent to build on reservations. We linked to the OPB story. It's on our website. And again, we think it's really worth your time. Hey, Kristen's been reading about all the things you have to say after her story at the top of the show. We are going to bring her back in to go over some of the big questions you have when we finish the story. All right, as we leave you tonight, we've been reading a lot of your comments that came in after Kristen's story at the top of the newscast, talking about illegal immigration and the effect it has on our schools. What have you been getting?
All right, so Rachel Osborne, she asked this on our Facebook Live feed of the show. She said, how has this affected the kids in her class, in Karen's class? They're upset. This was their friend. She used to walk down the halls holding hands with other kids. Her English was so good. She was a negotiator between her friends. You know, she would like try to stop different little things from happening, and they miss her.
What else we got?
People are also asking on Twitter, where is Karen's mom?
I was wondering that.
She's in Guatemala. She stayed there, and then as we said in the story, Karen's dad entered the U.S. illegally in 2018 and sent Karen back to Guatemala before this third hearing.
Keep the questions coming. Again, Kristen, you are sitting down with the superintendent tomorrow to talk about policy here.
Yes, on Monday. What questions do you have? Use the hashtag #HeyDan. If you give us questions, we will do our best to get answers.
Kristen, thank you. Thanks to you as well. For now, that is the end of the story.
This is